Normal. I'm watching it, and the plane suddenly begins to break apart.
Holy!
I see the back part of the plane behind the left wing break open. Smoke and flames come out.
As the plane spins out of control, the engines shear off. Mark Shaw, still trying to wake his son, also hears the plane.
And I think that it sounds just like the Concorde.
Come on, Jason. You know you have a doctor's appointment today. Come on, get up.
The house starts to shake. Pete Hayden watches in disbelief. At 9:16 and 15 seconds, Flight 587 slams into the ground. At 9:20 a.m., a pilot who has seen the crash alerts air traffic control at JFK.
Yeah, look out to the south of the aircraft crashing.
Say again?
An aircraft just crashed to the south of the field.
An aircraft crashed south of the field?
Aircraft fireball.
Controllers see a black pall of smoke over the suburb of Rockaway. On the ground, an amateur cameraman captures the horrifying scene.
Plane crashed. Where? Into the houses.
Houses are crushed and burning. Aircraft parts are everywhere. The whole neighborhood seems to be under attack. One of the first at the scene is Deputy Fire Chief Pete Hayden.
There are bodies everywhere, all over the streets, in the yards. Some victims still strapped into the seats of the airplane.
For Pete Hayden, the scene is all too familiar. It's 9/11 all over again. Only this time, it's his own neighborhood that has been hit.
I'm wondering who it is that I know today that was killed.
As the full scale of what has happened becomes apparent, residents are in a state of shock.
The engine fall down and the belly fall, the pitch then left side and make it straight all the way down.
From across New York, emergency services race to Rockaway. Among them, Inspector Michael Morley, who's horrified to hear the plane has crashed close to his own home. His first thought is for his son and his mother-in-law.
I know my son is at home. I know my mother-in-law is in the house. So I'm panicking like every other father. You know, I'm thinking, oh my God, what if my kid's killed? What if, I don't know what's going on with my family.
Michael Morley's next-door neighbor, Lois Shaw, is traveling to work when she gets a terrifying call from her husband, Mark.
What's gone, the house? He's screaming hysterically, the house is burning down. So I just totally freak out, and I'm trying to scream, where's Jason, what's happening? But we get disconnected at this moment.
Horrified, Lois heads home. News of the disaster spreads across the city.
Roger, I'll have to cut you off. We are just learning from Associated Press that there has been a plane crash in Queens.
Hector Algaroba is having breakfast in a diner, having left his parents at the airport.
The word that we have is that it is an American Airlines jet.
He's not certain which flight his parents caught, but his blood runs cold. Hundreds of firefighters from across the city are now fighting the blaze. Mayor Giuliani arrives to see the damage for himself.
We'll do everything we can to help these people, everything. And the president is on top of it. They're alert. They're watching everything else all over the country, so I think people should remain absolutely calm.
But New Yorkers believe they are being attacked again. The city is in meltdown. The Empire State Building is evacuated. The United Nations is in partial lockdown. Airports are closed, and all civil aircraft are grounded. Armed F-15 Eagles scramble, and other jets are on strip alert around the country. Tunnels and bridges are closed. The city is gridlocked. Americans fear their worst nightmare is unfolding once more. The plane has crushed 4 houses on the intersection of Newport Avenue and Beach 131st Street. Across the road, 5 more houses are ablaze. One of these belongs to Police Inspector Michael Morley. When he arrives at the scene, he is horrified. There is no sign of either his baby son or his mother-in-law. On his doorstep, 2 of his own officers are waiting for him.
Anybody left inside? My mother-in-law was babysitting Mikey.
Because I said, my son's in the house. And they said, we looked, there's nobody in there. They thought that maybe I was in there sleeping also. So I said, well, did you look good? And they said, yes.
As rescue vehicles race to the scene, roads into Rockaway are gridlocked. Lois Shaw battles desperately to get back to her family and home.
I had no idea what I was going to find or what had happened, but I was thinking that I just have to get to my house. I have to get to my house.
Michael Morley is in a desperate situation. His own loved ones are lost in the heart of the raging inferno, yet he's also the officer in charge of the scene.
I'm just a regular guy, and all of a sudden you're the highest-ranking police officer on the scene of a major catastrophe like this. I knew in a little while the whole police department's going to start responding and everybody's going to come and be helping out. But for right now, I'm in charge. What do you do?
Desperate to find her son, Lois Shaw abandons her car. She runs towards her burning house until she comes to a police cordon.
That's my house. I've got to get in there.
4 policemen, I remember, holding me back, and I was screaming, let me go. My son is in the house. Let me go.
No, my son is in there. My son is in there, too. Please let me through.
Michael Morley still has no idea what has happened to his own family. When senior police chiefs arrive, they hear his baby son and mother-in-law are missing.
And one of the chiefs says, hey, Mike, what are you still doing here? I said, I'm just trying to help out, boss. And he says, get out of here, go find your family. I said, all right.
More and more people, desperate for information, arrive at the scene of the tragedy. Among them, Hector Algaroba. He believes his parents were on the plane, but is praying for a miracle.
The hope was somehow all the smoke and all the fire that I'm seeing is from some sort of impact of the plane trying to land. And there has been a lot of people that survive. I'm trying to cling to whatever hope, because the last thing a human being loses in life is hope.
In the middle of the carnage, Lois Shaw is still looking for her family.
I'm running to see if Jason is alive, and I feel unreal. All I see ahead of me is smoke. I can't see anything.
Michael Morley races frantically from house to house, desperately hoping his loved ones will be sheltering with a neighbor.
Eleanor! Anybody who's a parent, you lose your kid in a Kmart or a Walmart or something like that, and you just get that panic and your stomach goes into knots and you start sweating, you're getting nervous, and you don't want to think the worst, but you can't think of it, and then just magnify that by, 100 times because a plane crash just was right on your house.
Jason, answer me, Mark!
Then, Lois Shaw hears the shout she's longing for.
And I looked, and that's when I saw Jason and Mark.
Lois! Lois, we're over here!
Once I saw him alive, at that moment, that was all that I really cared about. Nothing else really mattered.
Oh my God, are you okay? Oh, Jason.
Jason and his father are alive and well. They got out of the house with seconds to spare.
Oh my God, thank God. Oh, thank God, you're okay.
Give her a big hug. She was just out crying. That's when and then she was like, "What? Are you okay? Are you okay?" I was like, I didn't really have any emotions. It was just good to be together.
A block away, Michael Morley is still frantically searching when a neighbor calls him over.
Hey, Mike, get over here! God, they're right there! They're right there!
I saw him. It was a fantastic feeling because 2 seconds earlier, I'm starting to panic, thinking maybe they really were dead, and you turn around and there they were. My son was crying when he saw me, and you get worked up when your son's crying, and my eyes started getting wet. So I just held him for about 5 minutes.
But for each moment of joy, there are 100 of despair. Stan Molin, father of the co-pilot, gets a phone call with devastating news.
Told him that call came in, you can sort of you know, hoped that it was a different airplane. But that was the oh no, this can't be moment.
In the Dominican Republic, relatives expecting a family reunion at the Santo Domingo airport are suddenly confronted with an appalling reality. Their loved ones are dead. Hector cannot leave until he knows what has happened to his parents. He waits, hoping desperately. With the fire under control, the body count and identification of victims is underway. Mayor Giuliani holds a press conference.
We have so far recovered 132 bodies. And as the governor said, there were 255 people and crew members that were listed on the manifest. And I want to again express my sympathy and condolences to everyone involved.
After the announcement, Giuliani meets the bereaved families and personally gives Hector the news he is dreading.
He hugged me and gave me his condolences by telling me that my parents were on that flight.
It's just 2 months and 1 day since 9/11. The parallels with America's worst terrorist outrage are striking. America looks to the White House for answers. At 12 p.m., White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer makes a statement.
First, information is always subject to change. We have not ruled anything in, not ruled anything out.
Then President Bush interrupts a meeting with Nelson Mandela to make a statement.
We sent our FEMA teams over, the FBI is over there, and this investigation is being led by the National Transportation Safety Board to make sure that the facts are fully known to the American people.
How did Flight 587 end in catastrophe? Why did one of the most reliable aircraft in service break up in mid-air and come crashing down on a residential suburb? Now, by going deep into the investigation, we can reveal the facts behind one of the worst aviation disasters in US history, and how the truth sent shockwaves through the entire industry. Less than an hour after the crash, 21 NTSB officials, the GO team as they are called, are on their way. The man in charge is Bob Benson, a veteran investigator who's handled 94 major air disasters, including the 1988 Lockerbie bombing over Scotland. But not even Lockerbie can prepare him for pressure like this.
It was particularly important for us to get this one right the first time. There was no payback in changing our minds or anything like that.
Benson knows that the early hours of an investigation are the most critical. His team start gathering evidence at the crash site, a dangerous, shocking, and distressing business.
From a personal standpoint, I'll take deserts, I'll take cornfields, I'll take mountaintops, I'll take swamps before I'll ever investigate accidents in cities.
Potentially crucial clues also come from the surrounding area and from eyewitnesses who saw the plane break up in flight.
And then the whole plane shook and the tail came apart. That's all I saw, and then it, boom.
Both engines landed 245 meters before the plane. One fell onto a house, the other on a service station. The location of the two engines relative to the main crash site could provide an important clue. By plotting exactly where debris has landed, investigators should be able to determine the breakup sequence. The debris is scattered everywhere. Police and army boats are called in to gather parts from Jamaica Bay. Then, Benson personally witnesses a major discovery as he drives along the coast road. A crane is lifting the tail fin from the water.
That really got our attention.
The tail fin is an essential component of the aircraft. Without it, an airliner simply cannot fly. The fin was found floating in the water 1.2 kilometers behind the main crash site. For the investigators, this is clear evidence that it must have been one of the first parts to break away. It could be at the very heart of the accident. But what could have caused such a catastrophic failure? For a tail to simply fall off a plane is virtually unprecedented. Of the hundreds of eyewitnesses who saw the crash, there is no doubt this was a bomb.
And I saw an explosion in the sky, and I saw the plane. It looked like one of its wings fell off.
Just aiming for the ground, and I felt an impact, and then I saw smoke.
Well, my neighbor was yelling, "Take cover," and I really thought, this is it, they've started bombing now.
Even for a trained investigator, it's difficult not to jump to conclusions.
We're not supposed to speculate at early stages of any investigation. It was very hard not to in this particular case.
Hang on to it. Hang on to it.
Hey, Mike, get over here. Got it. Right in there. Right in there.
After the crash of an airliner into the New York borough of Queens, FBI forensic experts are searching for evidence of a bomb. They are also hoping to find two other key pieces of evidence: the plane's black boxes. The cockpit voice recorder should have recorded everything that was said by the pilots. The flight data recorder could tell them exactly how the plane performed throughout the flight. Each of the black boxes might unlock the mystery of the crash, but lead investigator Bob Benson knows finding either of them is likely to take days. Even then, they could be badly damaged. But just hours into the search comes an amazing stroke of luck. Marion Blakey, spokeswoman for the NTSB, makes an announcement.
We have recovered the cockpit voice recorder.
By now, there is a frenzy of speculation over the incident. Terrorism is foremost in people's minds. But for Benson and the NTSB, the lack of any corroborating evidence to support the theory is troubling. There is no sign of suspicious activity at the airport, and no group has stepped forward to claim responsibility for the crash. They take a calculated risk and announce that even at this early stage, they believe this was not a deliberate act.
It is the case that the National Transportation Safety Board is the lead agency because all information we have currently is that this is an accident.
The plan backfires. Suspicious New Yorkers start to wonder if this is a cover-up. The NTSB takes steps to reassure the public.
Should there be any indications of criminal activity, we will certainly make certain that the public knows as soon as we are aware of that, and the investigation would change at that point appropriately.
For Benson and his team, the pressure is mounting. Finding the cockpit voice recorder is a huge step forward. With one of the black boxes and the tail fin in his possession, hopes are high they will be able to piece together the reasons behind the crash. Although the recorder is damaged, the tape is still intact and is rushed to NTSB headquarters in Washington. Away from the glare of the media, investigators start to analyze the chilling final moments of the flight.
Let's go for power, please.
Every word, every sound is carefully analyzed. 89 seconds into the flight comes a chilling sound on the tape. There is a loud bang. Immediately afterwards, the crew can be heard struggling with the controls.
You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Hang on to it. Hang on to it.
Could this bang be the sound of an explosion? Perhaps there was a bomb after all. With the second black box, the flight data recorder still missing in the smoking wreckage, Benson knows that the truth will be hard to find.
Without that, it makes telling the story more speculative and more difficult.
For 2 days, investigators hunt through mountains of debris for the vital recorder. But instead of where they are looking, the next lead comes from 3 kilometers away. A pair of security cameras on the Triborough Bridge have captured the last moments of the aircraft. these tapes could hold the key to the disaster. In the grainy footage, the Airbus can just be seen as a black dot. On one camera, the dot disappears behind a building. Then the second camera picks it up. It shows what could be a crucial moment. A faint white streak just visible, trailing behind the aircraft. Is this the explosion seen by so many eyewitnesses? Is this the cause of the sound, after which the pilot lost control? This could be hard evidence to prove that there was a bomb, after all. The only way to find out is to compare the time. If the white streak happened at the same time as the bang captured by the voice recorder, the two are likely to be the same event. Investigators visit the site of the toll booth cameras. Using buildings as reference points, they work out exactly where and when the streak occurred. The results back up their theory that this was not a bomb.
We can see that the streak began 8 seconds after the initiating accident sequence.
The calculations show the streak occurred after the bang on the recorder. The flash is probably fuel escaping as the plane breaks up. This can't be the start of the accident, although it could be the reason so many people thought they saw an explosion. Then, back at the crash site, comes a dramatic development. Investigators get the news they have been desperate to hear. Searchers have recovered the flight data recorder. But the relief is short-lived. The black box is damaged. The NTSB send it back to the manufacturers to see what, if anything, can be retrieved. Now, the tail fin that was found floating in Jamaica Bay is starting to yield vital clues. The first thing investigators notice is that the fin is built from a high-tech material called reinforced carbon fiber composite. Often used in racing cars and sports equipment, composites consist of layers of carbon fibers bound tightly together with resin. The A300-600 was one of the earliest civil aircraft to feature this high-strength material, and it's used in many areas of the plane. But when investigators look closely, immediately alarm bells begin to ring. There are 6 main attaching points connecting the tail to the fuselage. All 6 have given way. There has never been a plane crash caused by a composite failure, but Benson can rule nothing out.
You have to imagine a force large enough to break 6 attaching points made out of one of the strongest materials in the world, 6 of these holding the vertical stabilizer on, and all of them broke. So the forces had to be just tremendous.
The detail of the failure is what worries the team. Plans show how each of the 6 attaching points has 2 lugs. One made from aluminium, the other from composites, connected by a titanium bolt. The damage shows that the metal lugs and the bolts remained intact, but the composite lugs all gave way. Benson has to consider the appalling prospect that the composite material itself may be faulty. With 240 similar planes still in service and thousands more using similar technology, it would have huge implications throughout the aviation industry.
If there's something that the composite creators or designers missed 25 years ago, it's now just starting to rear its ugly head. That's bad news for a lot of airplanes that are already flying.
Proving that the carbon fiber is to blame will need hard physical evidence. Benson urgently dispatches the stabilizer to specialist labs at NASA to see if they can detect any weakness. Using scanning electron microscopes, experts check over 3,000 square centimeters of surface, magnifying the material by up to 5,000 times as they search for any imperfection. It's a painstakingly slow process, and the pressure is building on Benzon and his team all the time.
It keeps you awake at night. You've got a lot riding on these things, and the eyes of the world initially, and then later on the eyes, at least of the aviation industry, are on us.
The pressure is also growing on Airbus. Is the design of their aircraft at fault? Has there been an error during assembly? They scrutinize every lug, bolt, and fitting on the tail, including the vertical stabilizer, as it is called. After hundreds of hours of work studying Airbus's design and construction methods, NASA and NTSB scientists finally give the plane a clean bill of health. They can find nothing wrong with the aircraft or the materials used to build it. While the news is welcome, it only serves to deepen the mystery.
Although we were relieved in that aspect, we knew we had a long row ahead of us because we still had no idea why the vertical stabilizer really came off.
Then, just as the investigation seems to have stalled, comes a vital turning point. Information from the damaged flight data recorder has at last been retrieved.
I was very, very relieved.
But no one is prepared for the startling picture that the flight data recorder will give. The focus of the entire investigation suddenly shifts from the machine to the man flying it, co-pilot Sten Molen. 83 seconds after takeoff, the recorder shows that Molen applied 5 extreme movements of the rudder, causing the plane to lurch violently from side to side. The plane slipped sideways to its direction of travel, first one way and then the other.
I've looked at a lot of flight data readouts in my time. I've never, ever seen that particular type of activity occur.
They realized that traveling at nearly 470 kilometers per hour, the aerodynamic stresses on the 130-ton Airbus would have been extraordinary.
They were virtually unprecedented to us. We were amazed.
It seems as though on the 5th movement of the rudder, the entire tail fin broke off. The implication is extraordinary. Simply by manipulating the controls, the pilot broke the aircraft. The NTSB is so concerned, they take immediate action. On February 8th, 2002, they issue a special warning to all pilots of this new danger. But the board have yet to prove that the tail came off simply due to aerodynamic forces. Many pilots doubt that such a thing is possible. The only way to be sure is to run detailed computer simulations, a process which could take months to perform. If the theory is right, then the idea that a terrorist plot must be behind the tragedy can finally be laid to rest. Benzon now faces a new and disturbing mystery. Why did the pilot act in this way?